Everybody, Bob Smith from Smith Taekwondo and Pro Sport Kickboxing and anti-terrorism expert. And I'm talking to you about the most recent incident after the New Zealand shooting, and that was the Indiana Teachers Association complaining because teachers got shot with airsoft. I have so many things I can complain about this. Teachers don't want to be involved. But what happened was the law enforcement in Indiana, the Sheriff's Department, they were implementing what's called an ALICE program. ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Confront, and Evacuate. Get out. And I don't care how many cool guy scenarios you have that you have to put your name on it as far as your special active shooter program. That doesn't matter. All you need to remember is three things: get down, get out, and get help. That's it. But some teachers that apparently volunteered, and the Sheriff's Department, law enforcement agencies took them in 4 at a time and told them to get in the back of the classroom, and apparently they huddled together and then they got shot with airsoft guns. And the teachers complained that this was too traumatic. Well, my arguments with that are, quit being so weak. Airsoft will break the skin, it will leave a welt, but you've got 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids that are playing airsoft every day after school. They are not lethal, they can't hurt you, other than some welts or some bruising. And it's just fun, it's a fun activity to play. We've played airsoft here for years, but the teachers felt that it was too traumatic. So they contacted their union, the Indiana Teachers Association. They were complaining about how traumatic this was. And the media was saying things like they were told not to talk. That's not what happened. What happened was law enforcement agencies took 4 teachers in at a time, had them sit down, and when they were done, the law enforcement agencies told them, don't say anything to the other teachers because we want to get the same response from them. So when they come in, they want to be able to catch you off guard and understand what's happening. I think every teacher should be going through this. Now, maybe not airsoft. I don't think some 70-year-old English teacher who's 300 pounds, she's not going to be running away from somebody that's shooting an airsoft gun at her. Unfortunately, she's not going to be running away from some 17-year-old kid who's taken 15 different types of ADD medication either. She's going to be a victim. So she, more than anybody, needs to participate and understand what's going on. The law enforcement officers have a good idea. This is a good activity to get all teachers involved. And the reason is because the majority of the teachers overall is it's too traumatic. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to expose my students to it. When we drop our students off at school, we have the misconception that the teachers are trained and prepared for active shooter scenarios. Unfortunately, they're not. And because most of the teachers don't want to get involved, we're basically throwing our kids out there not knowing what to do. Second thing is the teachers tell the kids not to get involved. Your students, your kids need to be involved in active shooter awareness. They need to know what to do. Teachers die every time there's an active shooting because there's only one teacher who will step up and try to put themselves between the threat and the students, and they end up losing their life for it. And the other teachers are all scrambling because they don't know what to do. Now, I've taught lectures and seminars for active shooters at private schools here in Honolulu, and I'm surprised at the number of teachers who say, well, we don't want to tip our desks over because it takes too long. It's too traumatic for the students. It's more traumatic than getting shot? Really? So maybe the law enforcement officers should have just used red guns, training guns, or blanks. Blanks would have the same effect. It's extremely loud, people would panic, but nobody would get shot with little soft airsoft pellets, and they wouldn't have a reason to bitch and moan and complain. It's going to hurt. It's going to be like a bee sting. But teachers need to be forced to get involved because the majority simply won't. And why is that? Basically because they believe, oh, that'll never happen to me. Now, me, working for the Department of Defense for the past several years, I would always do an attention getter like this. Myself and guys that I worked with we would break into a classroom when a class was getting ready to start. We would have red guns or training guns, and we would grab students and violently throw them to the ground and take charge of the classroom like an active shooter would. We would take hostages. We would do all sorts of things like this. And I can tell you that when you have 2 or 3 armed guys breaking into a classroom and they're screaming, "Get down, get down, get down, don't look at me," that gets everybody's attention pretty quickly. And it's a pretty motivating class after that, because everybody's got their heart rate pumping, their blood pressure's up, and they're focused to see what's going to happen next. It's the same old, I don't want to get involved. That's where the problems start. So law enforcement officers did a good job. And again, I don't think you need all these different cool guy acronyms. It doesn't have to be ALICE or SPOT or RUN or Triple G. Students just have to be involved, and the teachers have to be able to delegate. And you can't do that if you are working under stress. It's practice that allows you to have a pre-planned response. A teacher that understands what's happening is going to say, "Kiani, you close the blinds. Kimo, you lock the doors. Robbie, you call 911. Tiffany, you start sending out text messages. Jason, you start grabbing the first aid kit. Everybody else push the desk in front of the door." You have to have a pre-planned response. And I can tell you something else that teachers hate. It's because of liability, is they don't want their students to run. Teachers have been programmed that it's a shooter drill. It's not real. So therefore, we will be participating against our better judgment. We're just going to go sit in the back of the classroom and wait for it to be over. That's why the law enforcement officers took those teachers to the back of the classroom and shot them in a huddle, because it does not work. So get yourselves involved in an active shooter program. If you're in Indiana and your kids were, this is the teachers of some of your kids, go thank those teachers and motivate them and make them do it again, because at least they're doing something more than the majority of the teachers across the country. You want to have a response like New Zealand? We have a new knee-jerk reaction. Now the only people in New Zealand who have guns are the ones who have them illegally, and that's a lot. The entire populace is unarmed. But if you think that that's going to happen here, nobody's going to turn in their guns. You know, another asinine thought is unarmed and defending against an armed suspect. If you're a teacher and you're unarmed and you're trying to defend yourself against an armed suspect, you're going to lose. Now, it doesn't mean that you should be carrying guns around to school. It means you need to have a pre-planned response. My point is, it takes an armed gunman to stop an armed gunman. 9 times out of 10, you're never going to get close enough. Now, there is a portion in ALICE, confront. You might be a third party or a second party and come upon this shooting by accident. If you do, you better be ready to fight. And I hope you've been in a fight before, because it's going to be serious. And that's all I've got to say. So if you know those law enforcement officers, shake their hand, don't complain, don't try to get them fired, shake their hand and thank them, because they're trying to keep students alive. And if you're a teacher who went through it, suck it up, princess, because you're going to be okay, and it's going to make you that much better. This is Bob Smith. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. Get out there and learn what to do for an active shooter, and I'll see you next time. Out.